Hi there. I'm Kara. I created Lighthouse Mama, the blog, um, and it's a place for women to come and feel encouraged in their walk in their faith. Um, there's a lot to try to figure out in your faith walk, and there's no one way to figure out who you are and your value and your purpose and your strengths and um, how your relationship with Jesus comes about and how it's formed, how it strengthens. I mean, we're all going to have a different journey, but I think in general, women just want to feel encouraged, um, and to have a place or a sense of the fact that they're not alone in their journey and that there are other people out there who are dealing with the same things and going through the same stuff and have the same questions. And I think it's really important to for them to have a place where they can go and it's a safe place that they can process and be encouraged along that walk and journey. Um, as part of my blog in my profile, I talk about being authentic, and authenticity requires that you are open and willing to share of yourself. And it's taken me a long time to get to a place where I feel like I can do that and be okay with whatever response I get. Um, for a long time, I've been hesitant to share of myself and parts of myself that are messy because I want people to see me as I am and all the good parts, but the messy parts I just kind of want to keep to myself, And as part of being authentic, I wanted to share my testimony. I feel like I've been called to share it for quite a while, and I've been very resistant. I shared just like a little bit of it for the passion that played at the Living Room Church, and I I felt called to really share my full testimony, and that's a little scary. It's a little intimidating, and you have to be okay with the fact that there are going to be people who respond negatively to it, who are going to criticize and ridicule you. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with who I am. I have this godly confidence that has grown in me and has just now really um, taken over. Um, and so, regardless of the criticisms, my hope and my goal in sharing is to obviously to be authentic with you, and also in the hope that you're like, oh, me too, or um, oh, that gives me some hope. That makes me feel like things can get better. Um, and maybe shine a bit, maybe a different light on what being a Christian means to you, or where you'd like it to be. So my parents divorced when I was 4. We were living in Germany at the time because my dad was in the army. So we ended up moving back to Tri-Cities where my mom's parents lived, and started over. We were pretty poor. My mom worked really hard to provide for us. My grandparents helped out where they could, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for my mom, really working super hard, sometimes 2 jobs, to be able to support us. Um, and I really enjoyed the time that my mom and I had together when it was just us. Um, Eventually, she met someone, and he moved into our house, and they got married. And he must have been charismatic. I don't remember. I just remember him being incredibly angry and really unhappy. Um, he was an abusive alcoholic. While they were married, he was emotionally, physically, and verbally abusive. And that was a really difficult environment to be raised in. Uh, during that time, I was trying to figure out who I was and, where my place was or why was I here, and, uh, I had been feeling abandoned by my dad because when they divorced, I went to go live with my mom, and my dad started a new family. And in a child's eyes, that feels like abandonment. That feels like I wasn't enough. He had to go start another family. Obviously, as an adult, I understand that was not the case. I wasn't being replaced. He was just moving on with his life, and moving forward. But I felt abandoned by my dad. And then, my mom, when she chose to remarry, I felt like, well, I guess I wasn't enough for her. She needed to find companionship with somebody else. And so I felt like I just wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough. I felt alone. And at the same time, like I was told very often that I was too sensitive. So at the same time as not feeling good enough or not enough, I felt like I was too much, And so, I had all of these negative scripts going through my head that I didn't have a purpose. Like, why am I even here? I'm in this environment that's really destructive and really hurtful and painful. I didn't understand why these were my circumstances. I felt trapped and pretty hopeless in those circumstances. And I was born with a pretty quiet but sunny disposition, if that makes sense. And my environment kind of shifted those things. I became very withdrawn, and I built walls up around myself to not really let people know who I was, because I didn't believe that people were safe, and they weren't to be trusted. And I was afraid that if people got to know me, that they would see me the way that I saw myself. And I didn't see any good in that. And, it's hard growing up not feeling like you don't have value, and feeling like you have no purpose, and feeling abandoned, and all of these things that I was feeling. And so I had these negative scripts going through my head all when I was growing up. And I also felt like a burden to my family because I saw how hard my mom was working, and we were really struggling. And I felt like I was in the way of her and her marriage. And I always felt like he felt like I was in the way. And he made me feel pretty bad about myself as well. And so I felt like I was walking on eggshells around everyone, and tried to be as quiet as possible and, not make any waves. Eventually, the physical abuse reached a point to where my mom was like, I can't do this anymore. And they got divorced. And she remarried when I was 12. Around that time, I became very angry and very vocal about it, and pretty self-righteous. I started making pretty self-destructive decisions. And, they were all based on these negative things that I believed about myself. If that's what you believe about yourself and you have no hope, and you've dealt with these things, you don't make the best choices. And I didn't. And I was really unhappy, and I think everyone around me knew how unhappy I was. I felt like I had walked on eggshells for so long that I was done. And I think puberty for really bringing out the hormonal side. And man, my anger just reached this level that was pretty awful. I was fighting with my teachers. I didn't trust authority figures. I fought with friends. I fought with people that I felt like had a wrong tone with me. I had been quiet and had zero control over my circumstances. And now that I was older, I felt like I was taking control, and this was empowering to me, is what it felt like. Unfortunately, I hurt a lot of people in the process. I was not that great to be around because I was putting on this show of being super confident, like uber confident. And really, I was just a mess inside. I had zero confidence. I had no idea who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I felt like I was a mess. But I portrayed myself to be super confident, and I think people walked on eggshells around me because you never knew it was going to set me off. You never knew when I was just going to blow up and be like, don't talk to me like that. Or just smack somebody. I did that a couple times because I had zero control over my emotions, and I was just that angry. It didn't take a lot to set me off. And I hurt a lot of friendships that way, and I was hurting myself. My relationships all around were suffering because of that. My mom remarried, like I said, when I was 12. I didn't care for him, and he really didn't care for me either. Their relationship, there was a lot of fighting, and him and I fought verbally. And it was during a time where I was having a rough time anyway. So it was just rough all around at our house. And I remember when I was 15, I had reached a breaking point and was in this place where I was exhausted. I was physically drained and emotionally drained. I felt like a shell of a person who was just angry all the time and was making destructive decisions for myself. And I was tired. I remember coming home from school one day. It was towards the end of the school year. And I remember going into my bathroom and looking in my mirror. And I just started bawling. And I remember sinking down to the floor and thinking, life is too hard. What's the point? Why am I even here? It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. I don't want to be angry anymore. I just can't carry this weight with me. I remember thinking that it would just be better if I went to sleep and I never woke up. And that thought instantly sent fear running through me. And I realized, like, that's not a good place to be. This isn't healthy. This isn't okay, And so I remember making the decision to go to church camp that summer. And going to church camps it wasn't something that was out of the norm. I went to church camps all the time, but I went for fun. This was the first church camp that I felt like I needed to go to. And so, I went. And that weekend was transformative for me. I cried the whole time. I yelled at God. I poured my heart out to him, and I shared everything that I shared with you, like, these are the thoughts that I have about myself. This is what's in my heart, I am overwhelmed. I am feeling the weight of all my anger. It's like I can't breathe. And I just want peace, and I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to carry that weight around. I want to make better decisions for myself. I want to do good. I want to make a difference in the world, but I don't know how to get there. I am lost. And, up until that point, I had gone to church since third grade, and I had learned all the Bible stories and learned about God and learned how to read my Bible. But the key component of actually having that relationship was missing. I can't tell you why it was a missing element for me, but it just didn't click. I felt like I was talking to God, or most of the time at God, but I didn't feel like he could hear me. I felt like he didn't care, and so I really didn't have that relationship. And that's a key component that I was missing. And at that camp, like I said, I just broke down and I asked him to tear down the walls that I had built up around myself. I told him I wanted that relationship. I wanted to know that I had a sense of purpose. I wanted to feel loved. I wanted to feel valued. I wanted peace in my heart, and I wanted a sense of direction, like what am I doing here? Like, what's my purpose? Um, and, at the end of that weekend, I had decided to get baptized. I got baptized when I was 10 because my mom asked me to, but I didn't understand what I was doing, and I didn't understand the reasoning behind it. When I was 15, I knew the reasoning behind it, and I was ready to jump in. I was ready. And it's because I wanted to enter into a relationship with Jesus. I wanted to partner with him in allowing him to lead me. I wanted him to know that I believed in his sacrifice for me and was so grateful, and was ready to allow him to take that burden from me, and to not feel like I was suffering and I couldn't breathe. And so I made that decision, and at the end of the weekend I felt peace for the first time since I could remember, and hope that things were going to get better. And I could breathe. I could take a full breath. It wasn't like I had this big boulder sitting on my shoulders and I just couldn't take a full breath. I felt like I could breathe, and I felt peace in my heart for the first time since I could remember. And I remember feeling loved. And that was very powerful for me. It caught me off guard because I was not anticipating this big shift instantly. That's not how it works for a lot of people, but that's how it worked for me. And, feeling that peace and feeling that anger just be lifted, and feeling hopeful and feeling kind of excited about what was ahead, that was new to me, and it was powerful, and it was so beautiful. And I remember going back to school and kind of starting over. I didn't want to keep making the decisions that I was making, so I kind of changed my group of friends around a little bit, and started hanging around with people that wanted to do the same things that I did. And, things got better. And I would love to say that since I made that commitment, and since I entered into that relationship with Jesus, that my relationship with him has been great, and that it's been strong. Just like anything else, your walk in your faith is personal, and it's going to be different for everyone. My walk has had a lot of twists and turns, and it's had a lot of detours, major detours. And I wish I could say that I have not made any mistakes since then, and that life has been full of rainbows, and, nothing bad has happened. But that's not the case. That's not real life. That's not how it works, And so, my faith has been tested big time since then. I've gone through many trials. I've gone through 3 miscarriages. Our marriage has had its hard points. I deal with anger in my parenting, which is new to me. Like, I didn't anticipate that at all, but that's something that I've had to work through, and have seen God work in my life in that way, and in my parenting, and in my relationship with my oldest daughter. And it's really, man, it's beautiful how he works, because I wouldn't be the mom I am without having gone through that trial. Man, it's crazy the way that God works. Sorry, I get blown away sometimes thinking about how he's worked in my life, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, and I deal with depression, and man, it can be really rough. And we're currently going through Chapter 13 bankruptcy. My husband had a business that didn't end up making it, and for circumstances that were somewhat out of his control. And during the time that he had his business, our family life was hard, because he was having to focus so much of his time and attention on the business, and he was stressed, and I was trying to keep our family afloat during this time. So our marriage really took a hit during that time. But now we've had to work through all of the fallout from the business not making it, and it's actually made our marriage so much stronger. And through this bankruptcy, we're going to be paying debt off for 2.5 more years. But it's also allowed us this opportunity to learn how to be good stewards with our money, how to manage our money well. And so that's kind of been a blessing too. It's not easy. It stinks. It's not awesome having to pay back all this money, but it's part of life, and that's the way that things go. And we are learning a lot, and God has provided for us in these crazy ways that I have not asked for when I've asked for blessing or asked for Him to provide for us, but it's been in ways that are really beautiful and in ways that have actually been the best for us. I sometimes forget that God knows what's best, but He really does. And He's proven that to me time and time again. He has never let me down. He has always come through when I have asked. And sometimes it's taken a long time. For instance, our youngest daughter, Annabelle, she just turned 1 this past February. We waited almost 6 years for her, and there were a couple of miscarriages in between our oldest and our youngest. And I thought we were done. I thought God was saying no. And He said yes. It was a surprise 6 years later. And it's actually worked out beautifully because the dynamic of our kids is pretty cool. And I'm more mature as a parent and as a woman, and I have a deeper faith now. So I feel almost better prepared to have a baby and also to be a better mom to my oldest. And so, like I said, God has shown me time and time again his goodness and His love for me. What's really powerful now is that the past 3 years have been very transformative for me. And my testimony feels like it keeps developing over time. It wasn't just that one thing. That's my baptism and hitting that breaking point. I've had a lot of breaking points throughout since then. But that was like my first real connection with God. And it was powerful. And it really did completely change the direction of my life. In the past few years, my relationship with Jesus has changed. As where I had a relationship with Jesus, He is now my foundation. Everything that I do, every action that I make, every word that I say, I want it to reflect God's goodness. And I want it to reflect the fact that I love Jesus and that He is in my life and that He is working. I do not do that perfectly. I'm not perfect. I struggle in many different areas of my life, but I also give those areas to Jesus, and He's working in me and through me in these areas, and I see changes, and it's beautiful and powerful to see how He works and the way that He's working. Man, God is just so good. And so my relationship with Him has changed. I used to have a really hard time trying to read through the Bible. But now it's like I have seen the way that Jesus loves me. I've seen the way that God provides and that He hears me and that He cares and that He moves. So I want to get to the heart. I want to get to know the heart of the one that loves me so much and cares about me so much. And so that's why I read the Bible, because it's His message to us. It's His heart for us. It's how we were created. It's his basically His like love message to us about, how He wants us to live our lives and how He loves us and His purpose for us while we're here and things that have happened to get to this point. And I find that very beautiful, and I want to get to know Him more. And so I actually enjoy reading my Bible, and my foundation is in Jesus, and I don't feel awkward sharing that with people, as where a few years ago I would have been like, I don't really want to talk about it. Like, yeah, I'm a Christian, but, I don't really want to like talk about how awesome Jesus is. It makes me really uncomfortable. It doesn't make me uncomfortable anymore. And I have rediscovered at this point in my life, because I feel like there's transitions, there's changes. So God will call you to do certain things at certain times, and you will have seasons where he's calling you to do certain things, and then a season where that ends, and then you have a new season where he's calling you to do something new. And I feel like this season of my life, he's really been growing obedience in me, humbling me, allowing me to grow in my faith in him, and to be obedient to what he's calling me to do, trusting that he knows what he's doing and that he knows what he's calling me to do, and that it's for good. And so at this point in my life, it's so awesome because I know my purpose. I know my value. I know who I'm called to serve. I have peace in my heart. I have this relationship with him where I can call on him for anything, and I do, and I trust that he will provide. I really do trust that he will. And there's so much peace in that. And I know that he's given me a gift of encouragement, and I'm called to encourage others. When he gives you a gift, he wants you to use it. And I haven't really known how to use it in the past, but I'm kind of figuring it out. And I'm really enjoying being able to encourage other women and girls. I want them to know their value. I want them to know their worth. I want them to know what their giftings are, and I want them to figure out how they can use them out in the world, because it's such a beautiful gift to be able to know these things, because your life can be super messy, but if you have that foundation, man, you have a great head start, and life looks a little brighter. And I think our world has a lot of darkness because people have forgotten that they have value. They were all created by the same creator who loves each and every one of us. You and that guy at the coffee shop who just mouthed off to you or was rude to you or gave you a dirty look. He loves all of us. And we all have value, and we need to treat each other like we all have value. And I think if we did that and recognized that we all have value, that the world would be a better place. I really do. And I know my purpose is to bring a little light to the world, which can be a dark place sometimes. And, I'm still figuring out ways to do that. I want my life to be completely used up. And I want to leave a legacy of good and of encouragement and of loving others well when I'm ready to go. And I want to empower my daughters to know who they are in Christ and to be empowered by who he says they are and what his purpose is for their life, and to have godly confidence to go out and do these big things, and not allow fear to stop them, because I've allowed fear to rule in my life for way too long, and it's enough. I'm ready to be bold and to live with godly confidence. And that's not to say that I'm not going to have bad days. That's not to say that there are going to be days where I would really rather veg. But I really do want to make a difference, and I want to make the world a better place. And I want women to know that they are loved and that they have a crazy amount to offer to the world. And they just need to figure out what that is. They need to figure out how to find their unique sense of being, and how they're going to allow that uniqueness of themselves to change the world. And that's where, man, I get really excited, because, God created the world and all the beauty. I mean, look out your window and that sunset or that sunrise or the trees, the grass. You look at nature and it's just beautiful. And you see that he's created all of this that we have and that we get to enjoy, and he created it for you to enjoy and to take care of. So the creator of everything that there is, all the universe, and that created Adam and Eve, saw fit that the world still needed you in the exact time, in the exact place. I mean, that is powerful, isn't it? Isn't that empowering to know that there's something about you that maybe you haven't figured out yet, that God said, yes, we need this person because this person is going to make a change in the world. This person is going to bring this person to Christ. This person is going to do this good thing, and we need that person and their exact likeness to do it. I just find that crazy. It's mind-blowing. Anyway, so that's my testimony. I hope that you are encouraged. I hope that maybe it helps you find a little hope. I don't know. I trust that God's going to do with it whatever he's going to do with it. My hope and my prayer is that a lot of good comes out of it and that it reaches who needs to hear it. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my testimony. Thank you for listening. I know it's been like 31 minutes. I can be a little long-winded, and I can ramble from time to time, but thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. If you know of anybody who might want to hear it or need to hear it, please feel free to share it. And if you have any questions, if you have anything that you'd like to comment, anything, come to my blog, leave a comment on this video. I would love to hear from you. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope this video has given you a little bit of hope and maybe something to think about. And I hope you have a great day.